which usually begins at 7:30 on these regular nights. But we're going to precede our regular meeting with a committee meeting because council took last week off. We had very few items on our committee agenda, so we kind of backed it up to tonight. So we're going to begin, actually we have one committee that is on our agenda, Finance and Personnel, but there are several issues that will be discussed. So Chris Nisley, the chair of our Finance and Personnel Committee, it is up to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have 4 items and several miscellaneous announcements. The first one is that we will be bringing forward next week an appropriation ordinance, or we will be bringing that forth. And this is to allow for a transfer of funds to pay for parking enforcement refunds, and the amount of that appropriation will be $500. Second item regards equipment disposal, and City Council members on the Finance Committee have received information about our 2 zero-turn mowers that the Street Department uses to do all of our summer mowing. And what's happened is that we've had consistent problems with the belts breaking, apparently 11 times this season already, and that they just are not able to be serviced anymore, and create a dangerous situation potentially for both the operators or, if anybody would happen to be nearby. When the belts give, it's impossible for the mowers to stop. So
it's tied to the braking system, so once the belt's going, you lose all control. So it's been braking on hills, and that's a concern. So they want to replace them out.
And I do know that I did inquire to find out whether or not they are out of warranty. They have been serviced several times, and they're, to the best of our knowledge, I know that Andy was going to, Street Department Public Works Director Andy Stone was going to check with the manufacturer to find out if there had been any kind of recall, and to the best of my knowledge, we've not received any information that they are. No. So we'll be moving forward an ordinance for the disposal of those 2 mowers, and then needing to purchase new ones. Third item is a transportation enhancement grant application, and Councilmember Gosney will be speaking to that.
Yes, this is an ordinance that would allow the city to enter into a grant application with the state of Ohio for some federal funds available for transportation safety and improvements. So this would be a project on Richland Avenue from Dairy Lane back to Canterbury, correct?
Correct.
And this is a large project, over $3 million, estimated at around $3.5 million, with a pretty big contingency built in for any unforeseen expenses. With this grant, the city would be responsible for 20% of expenses, construction costs related to this, and the remainder would be paid for by these federal dollars for transportation and enhancement and improvement. This would be a project, if the city is awarded and goes through with this, it would be a 2014 construction project, so we're a couple years out from when this would take place. And I don't have anything to add to that unless the mayor's office.
No, maybe you'll answer my question. Go ahead.
Originally, Director Stone was looking for transportation safety grant money to do this project. He did receive some, I believe. He's been told that he would get about $500,000. Of course, this is like a $3 million project, if my memory is correct. The recommendation of I think, was that they should actually try for the transportation enhancement pot of money. Realize, of course, this dovetails where you were putting transportation enhancement, I think, for the bike bridge across Hocking at the time. So we really have to make a choice which one we want to go with. And it's quite, I think within, my administration right now, it's like, okay, we fix Richland Avenue, or we put a bridge across, the Hocking River. And because they would compete against each other. So, but priority-wise, I think Richland is probably the more important of the 2. And again, it's an 80-20, so we'll probably have it to go. Okay, just so you know. And I think it has to be suspended too. The application, I think, is coming up real quick.
Yeah, there's
We need to suspend rules on
a
that.
deadline very soon for that
Okay.
application.
And maybe we'll talk about that at the time, but what kinds of activities would be included on Richmond Avenue?
see.
And replacement of,
Curbs, and also, I believe, some of the utility lines, storm drains, sidewalks.
Yes, originally, it hasn't altered that much from what we were talking about for this, the actual transportation safety part of it, enhancement part of it, which is basically trying to make a complete street, keep the sidewalks, it's going to be difficult. I mean, we'll probably have to go through a series of public hearings to get the input of all the businesses up and down the line. But the idea is to put a bike lane if possible, and again, the sidewalks, make them functional, and how to do that all in one place with Coates Run on one side and Hillside on the other is going to be difficult. But there are some renditions and ideas. Some of them got a little bit far away from what I would see as workable, but I know that they've reined them in a little bit. One was a no left turn zone there, which I didn't think was going to fly whatsoever.
And I think that there have been several public meetings, and council members have attended those in the past, as did local business persons, and we talked about some of those plans, and yes, businesses gave us feedback on how the no left turn lane might be problematic for their businesses, and I think that Director Stone has come up with at least a preliminary design that will still allow the left turn lane and then bike path as well as sidewalk areas.
but there still will be plenty of time for citizen input.
Correct,
and
that's true.
business, yeah.
And again, 2014, I think we're just trying to get ourselves in as a placeholder. So the application has to be in, and then we can whittle it out a little bit better.
Thank you.
But you know as well as I do, there's problems on that road, so they have been for a while.
Any other questions or comments about that grant application? Okay. The next item is the Athens Hocking Solid Waste and Recycling Center contract, a copy of which, the draft of which, is attached to the agenda tonight. And this would become effective July 1, 2012, and it is for renewal. And there are some areas that are highlighted where the information has been updated. You might notice that on page 3, that what we're talking about is that the city agrees to pay the recycling center for the performance of all solid waste and recycling services as covered in this agreement at base charge of $71,000 plus 80% of the extra bags and special haul fees per calendar month. And there will also be, in addition to be included, will be the recycling support fee of $1 per unit that was enacted in 2010 with Ordinance 03410. And the Uptown Recycling Remote Service will be the $540 per block per month. And we do have, the mayor may have some additional information, and Mr. Roger Bales is here with us tonight to answer any questions.
Let me add a few things. Again, this is an extension of a contract that will go to 2014. The concern, I went to the solid waste district meeting this morning, their concern is that they'd be locked into it, and we have that. We've been approved. The solid waste plan has been approved by the EPA with some tweaks, I believe. But at the same time, I think the concern is that one of the things that we're required to do is start looking at a single stream sorting system there. MRF, I think, is the term. So they were a little bit worried about it, but realize in this contract on page 5 is a 60-day drop dead clause if we wanted to get out of it or they wanted to get out of it. There's also, if you look on page 3, I'm pretty sure you have it in red there. There's been discussion about a generation fee. And that would be one way to finance our sorting system. So we will anticipate if that gets put in and charged, that we would actually put that into our mix as well. The recycling remote service, which is $450 per block per month, is essentially for the uptown area, the franchise area. What you're seeing is because we've coalesced a lot of the pickup and recycling there, There's a little disconnect between the pay-as-you-throw issue as well as getting in and out of some of these locations. So this is to help put it together, so to speak. I don't know if that answers your questions or not. And as I say, Roger's here if he has any, but...
I have a question for you. You're saying that the fee would be added to each user's monthly charge amount.
You're talking about the recycling fee per unit?
That was in red that we're reading on page 3. If we decided to do a disposal fee, or who would get charged that?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
What would happen would be the 71,250 base number that you
Yes.
see there.
Yes.
If the generation fee would be enacted,
Okay.
once it goes into effect, then that 71,250 base amount would be raised by that amount there. The city's actual cost would go up. Your customer cost wouldn't change as proposed in this. The
That's-
city's cost would go up.
That would be up to us to change what we charge.
Right.
That's
If
where
we
I was
recoup.
going in my head.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what it is, it's a pass-through, exactly what the cost of landfill would be, would just be passed straight on to what the cost would be based on what last year's volume of trash would have been by 12.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, I guess? No.
None that I have. Any other council members?
Do we need this acted on immediately?
The current contract is in effect until June 30th.
Well, we can have it go one reading and then, or we can do it, let's see, it's got an emergency clause on it, does it? Let me check that real quick.
We have one more.
Yeah, it does. So
Yeah.
you can let it go for one reading if you choose. It's your call. That's all I have, really.
So a question, Mayor, you mentioned at some point in the future we might need to look at a single collection where there's not sorted recycling.
The plan
Discussion
actually discussed the idea of having a sorting center eventually. The dialogue that's been going back and forth with that is that the sorting system is at full capacity as a customer sorting and then bring it out. And it's always limited because a lot of people don't want to do that. I get regularly the waste and recycling newsletter, I think it's called, and the latest one talks about the future being all single stream. I know Nancy was always down on that because you lose the high quality materials as well as when you commingles. I have to agree with that. Personally, I think the sorting system is a good thing, but I recognize the fact that we'll never get past a certain ability to it because many people will not take the time to sort. The facility we have now cannot take extra capacity. It probably has some room for capacity. You probably know better than I, Roger. But if we really want to go and hit that, that 25 or 30% mark for the district, we're going to have to get a better system. The options are to actually job it outside the county. And if you talk to the zero waste people, their concern, of course, is once you lose control of that waste stream and the dollars that it generates in recycling, which never pays for itself. That's the first thing you want to recognize. How to bring it into actually being able to gather that stuff and reuse it or actually create an industry within the district is lost. So these are the options that have been played out. I think part of the plan is to study the feasibility of putting a MRF and where to put it. The site right now on County Road 13 is not the optimal, but it represents kind of a midway point between the two districts. And actually not so much a midway, but if you were to balance the amount of garbage generated. We are the largest
Based on
generators in the
generation.
district. Number 2 is the university. So if you're going to say how far you want to move this stuff, it becomes an issue there. So there are things that have to be studied still. There's a zero waste study that's going on simultaneous with the MRF that will have to be started up, implemented sooner than later, I imagine, right?
Right, the director's orders from the Ohio EPA is they approved our 5-year waste plan contingent that the study be completed within 12 months. That study was to determine the collection system we have, the materials recovery facility that we should have or could have. Is there another alternative to private collection? To look at all the different possibilities, and at the end of that study, the board of directors will have to revisit that and say, is this the right 5-year plan? Is this the right direction? the concern of some of the board members were, if a 2-year commitment's made to provide the services we're talking about tonight, and then the plan needs to be changed, what happens toward the end of the 2-year contract if there are changes needed? And the mayor let them know that there's always been a clause in there on page 3 about the 60 days, and then if push come to shove and the change had to happen, it could happen. If that comes down the road, I think it's going to be a lot of pre-knowledge about it, because it's going to be public meetings and public study and the planning commission and everything, so there's not going to be any surprise to it. But the concern from the solid waste, or I should say the nonprofit board, was, we're agreeing to 2 years, but what if we need to change? So that, I think, will address the discussion on the 60-day outlaws.
And actually, 60 days would hardly be adequate, because if you think how much trash we collect, think about move out that's coming right at us right now. Ready to know that, right?
Yes, sir. Underway.
Anyway, that, this is, we generate a lot, and we have to have that system in place. It's not like we can shut down and hold our breath, or we would hold our breath, I guess, just because it'd be really bad if we did stop collecting for any period of time. I think I was told in the past there was one time a strike when the city had it. I don't know if that's really true historically. But, we want a system. You can't just...
In that detail.
Okay.
It was in the early 90s, there was a discussion of it was going to be city trucks or other employees.
Does that answer your questions?
That helps, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that information. The only other miscellaneous item that I have tonight is to once again announce that the City of Athens is offering the one-time income tax amnesty that is running through the month of June, and that's for people to file and pay delinquent income taxes. And this is before the city begins working with a group in Cleveland who will be cross-checking their database of federal income tax returns with our city information. So just to announce that one more time, and I believe that it has been in most of the newspapers in this past week announcing the amnesty program during June. And so people are to feel free to call the Income Tax Department at the city at 592-3337 on weekdays between 8 and 4 if you have questions about that. Are there any other miscellaneous items? Yes, Auditor
I have a
Hecht.
couple, since we have a few minutes. One in particular just came up today when Vicki from the community center called. We made some changes with how we were handling the money and our pass-through grant with Lakefront that we used to handle, and now Community Action is handling that. So the money still passes through us. However, it's no longer our grant, and it was going through the Transportation Fund 214, and now we've been paying our small amount of administrative fees out of 271. And they are going to need an additional appropriation of $35,000 in 271 professional services to make that payment. Vicki is making May's payment now and won't have enough money to make the next payment. So I know we have another committee meeting coming up, but this will need to be suspended and passed at the next regular council meeting.
Okay, so the money needs to be appropriated in 271?
Yes.
Or transferred from 2?
Just appropriate. There's not enough money in transportation because we stopped putting the money in there.
Yeah, we took it down last time.
Right, it just
Okay.
needs to be appropriated in 271 so that they can pay the administrative fees to Community Action.
Okay.
Okay.
So it runs around $5,000 a month, so that'll be about $35,000 for the end of the year.
Okay.
Okay? Do have one other thing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Throw it out there.
You got time.
Why not? I just wanted to let council know that we have contacted a firm about reviewing our income tax code. For quite a while, I've been aware that there are some inconsistencies in there. We have two sections. One is considered regulations, and the other second part is considered the administration. Well, a lot of the wording is used in both, and references are made to the regulations in the administrative part. And they haven't quite been updated. I don't know why, when we had our code redone a few years ago, I thought they were supposed to be like editing and reviewing and letting us know if there were inconsistencies, but that didn't happen. So now I would like to contract with this person and this firm to review our code. I don't believe I'll need an appropriation, and we've already gotten a quote. However, what will happen is we will be provided, and you guys have seen these, although this will be more extensive than probably most of what you've seen, is the cross-out and bolded changes. And when we did this, I don't know, I want to say 2005 or 6, we sent this through the law director's office first, and I would assume that this would happen that way this time also, but then it would come to council, and there would be a lot of that. We have options. Most entities only have one section. The administrative regulations are really up to us and don't need council approval, only the actual regulations or rules. However, we have had a two-part code for quite a while, and unless council doesn't want to have to look at it or deal with it, I prefer to keep it that way. Then all of our information is out there, and anybody who wants to go and see, you know, how much we refund or don't refund, what our interest rates are, different things. Like I said, some of it overlaps. However, you know, if you want to take a quick look at our code now and get an idea, but I don't see any harm in continuing with the two-part code. I would say another issue and why a lot of entities don't do that is because their government is set up differently and their finance officers are not elected. And I guess I would prefer that, but if anybody doesn't care and thinks we ought to, you know, pare down our code, that's okay too. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions about that part about it? Mm-hmm. Maybe you'd have to look in the code and get an idea. The second part is longer, and a lot of it is repetitive. However, it's more information for anybody who wants to go in and see what they should and shouldn't be doing. So, as
What is that, chapter 9, is it, or?
11, I
11.
believe.
So as I understand, what you're suggesting is it needs to be reviewed.
Yes.
You're going to be contracting with someone to do those reviews. We'll be able to track the reviews because you'll be using the track changes feature so we all can look at them. And your recommendation would be that it be
So we have it review
two-part.
both sections and keep it as a two-parter. However, you know, that's something you might want to think about as you look at it and see if it's necessary. As I said, even though he said that most entities only have one section and the administrative part of it is up to the tax office, I don't know. I don't see any harm in keeping both sections. It'll cost a little bit more for the review. And of course, having two sections is part of the reason for the, contradictions and not making sure that a change in one section was in the other section also. But I don't know. As I said, we've always had two. So we can cut it back, and we can administer however we want, or we can put it all out there. So I also thought that our TGT, the third part of our tax code section in code, has to do with the TGT, and it's not very involved, but I thought I would have him look at that also.
And that's the transient guest tax.
Sorry.
Okay, just so everybody knows.
Transient guest tax, yes, which is set up by the state, so most of what we have is set by the state. However, fees, fines, penalties are set by us, and so I would like him to look at that and see if he thinks that is appropriate, with
So it
other
would be making
entities.
sure that our particular code for transient guest tax is in line with what Ohio Revised Code is
Right.
saying. Okay.
Right.
I like the way you said that is because I think it's consistent with you being an elected person with everything out there in terms of having it both two separate sections and all that in the total review. I think that's good for the public.
I do too. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I think it's good. Most of our tax accountants in town know us and have worked with us for many years. However, there are always new people coming and going, And I think it makes it easier if they can go and refer to the whole thing, either section, both sections, or if anybody wants to find something out and then is afraid to call or doesn't know who to call or whatever.
It's already there.
But it's all out there. It's already set up that way, so, that would be my preference, is to have him review both of them, make sure they jive, and then we'll come back to you. But as I said, it's involved, and tax wording is not really fun to read or follow, so.
Do you have an approximate cost of this?
Yeah, I believe it's a little less than 3,000. He has hourly rates, so it depends on whether he gets into anything really involved. But to do it all is around 3,000.
Okay, just
I
wondered.
think I have it in my budget.
Yeah,
Depending
just
on how much
ballpark,
our
right?
audit, right. So it's not, a really ridiculous cost to the city. And I think our audits is going pretty well, so I think we'll have some money in that professional services line to pay for that. I just wanted to warn you.
And when do you anticipate this being completed
Well,
and available to
I
council?
don't think it will take that long. If it was up to me, I'd like it to be through council, soon, maybe in July, but I don't know if he'll be done by then or not. So if he got done by the end of June, I'd be happy to get it started and have it on the books, have the corrections made.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other miscellaneous items for finance and personnel?
Got 3 minutes.
Okay. We will call the committee meetings to a close. We do have about 3 minutes. I think that there are some audience members who don't want to sit through the rest of the meeting, so we'll take just these 3 minutes to make some switches, and then at 7:30, we're going to come back and start our regular session. So. Good evening. This is a regular session of Athens City Council on Monday, June 4th, 2012. It's just about 7:30. Our first order of business is to establish a quorum. We have all council members present, so a quorum is obviously established. Secondly, disposition of a set of minutes. Could we have a motion to accept the regular session of minutes for the council meeting held May 21st, 2012?
I motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting these minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We have accepted this section of minutes. Communications from, I don't have any communications. Actually, I do. Next week is going to be a regular committee meeting night, but we are going to begin at 7 o'clock with a public hearing regarding our community development block grant. It's the second hearing of this session. The mayor, I believe, will be running most of that, but we do need to make sure that everybody knows this is an opportunity for citizens and council members who have issues that they think might deserve some attention here. Okay, so that's my communications. Mayor, do you have some other?
Just to add to that, I believe the main thrust of where we're going to spend that money is probably going towards the Lancaster-Columbus Road corridor area. I don't think it would be the full length, but we're discussing, of course, I think the Lancaster, which would be technically North Lancaster. But we're still open to other input. A couple of things. One, of course, is that move out is coming, so if you just be aware of that, we're going to be operating full steam. If you want to find out information, you can always go to Ohio edu/recycle. They have a schedule of what's going to be happening. We'll have the various organizations picking up food and furniture and everything else, with the idea that 80% of what we throw out could be saved. That's one thing. Be aware that we just, the contract for eGov is now come and gone, so we're on a website our website is of limited or truncated abilities to get all the information that you've been normally getting. So if you have a problem, contact the offices that you want to go to the department that needs to be done. If not, you can always contact us, or our IT guys. But right now, as I say, it's kind of a limited edition till August, I believe. Last thing, of course, is that originally we were talking about trying to start the Grosvenor Slip later in the summer, but they've moved it ahead. I think they're going to be starting. I think they've started to stage the stuff already and grubbing, I think. So just be aware that traffic pattern will be kind of limited as well. It should be open at least one lane, I believe. So we have things going on already. And they started before move out, and graduation, which I'm aware of, but they're marching to their own drummer, I guess. And that's all I have.
Actually, we received a news release from the Office of Engineering and Public Works that says that Grosvenor Street between number 74 and number 90 will be open to local traffic only. And that will be only one way. So it's pretty limited. So Grosvenor is not a good choice for through traffic at this time. Some good things going on there, though.
It took long enough. It's taken a long time to get that.
I'm sorry, Auditor, I interrupted,
Sorry.
took yours. Anything to say? Any communications other than what you were?
I do. I didn't
No,
know if
I'm
you were
done.
done with, okay, are you sure? I just have one. Tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock, the Income Tax Department is hosting a meet and greet in the front conference room at City Hall. This is mainly for local accountants, but anyone is welcome to join us. We are going to, reason for this is twofold, is to introduce our new administrative assistant for tax, and to talk about the amnesty program and any questions that the local accountants might have. We also have Michelle Jordan from Dayton Area Tax Administrators Association over there, who has dealt with CCA and done the amnesty program in Dayton, and they did it in 2008. Anyway, she will be available to talk about any of their experiences and any questions that they might have. I think we've had several people call and come in already, and so I think that the program is pretty clear. We just need to encourage people to take advantage of it if they have any questions. So it's we're just doing all we can to get the information out there, as Member Nisley mentioned earlier. And so anyway, 2 o'clock tomorrow at City Hall if anybody is interested. That's it.
Law Director Lang? Any council members with communication this time? Okay. We're going to move on for one ordinance for third reading. Ordinance 6012, an ordinance establishing the City of Athens Environment and Sustainability Commission, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we accept Ordinance 6012.
Second.
This ordinance is establishing an Environmental and Sustainability Commission. As we discussed before numerous times, this commission was requested by the Comprehensive Plan Revised Committee that looks and reviews the comprehensive plan to see how we can implement it better within the city. And it will be like an advisory committee. It won't be like the Planning Commission, which has certain types of legal obligations and legal votes. And I see this as being able to take on certain types of education, research, and advisory roles for the city. And Ed Baum is here if you have any questions, but we have to discuss this. And I'd like to say I've had many people already call me, so I think that this actually pretty enthusiastically supported by citizens.
Thank you. I'm Ed Baum, 20 Sunnyside Drive, and I'm here in my role as Chair of the Comprehensive Plan Review and Advisory Commission. I just want to commend Council on moving forward on this. This is something that helps the plan move forward. It's a gap that we discovered as our commission began to look at ways in which to implement parts of the commission and make recommendations to City Council. It also grows out of the interest that people in the city have expressed in the various meetings that we've had over the past several years. And so I thank you very much. I do encourage members of council to move speedily in appointing members of the commission. I think the last commission that you created, it took a year to fill it. and I hope it won't take that long this time. I do know the names of some people who are interested in it, and thank you.
So, if anybody is interested, if we pass this tonight, to contact Debbie Walker, so that you can get on our master email list, so that when we go forward with this, and I'm looking at, in midsummer, it's difficult in August when everybody's gone to try to fill committees. I see this being, really started in September.
Would you be asking for a letter of interest and a resume or credentials?
I think a letter of interest to start with would be, we may have develop a little questionnaire so that we can maybe get different, we don't want all engineers, but then we don't want all, environmental educators. We kind of want a broad selection of people, so.
Okay.
Chris?
And as I understand, does the original ordinance have, not requirements, but selection of who will be represented, what different groups will be represented on this commission?
Not like other committees, like the Comprehensive Plan Review and Advisory Committee had certain requirements. That's not the same for this.
Okay.
So we don't need, 2 business people and people from each neighborhood association. So
Okay.
it's more, so.
And just in that same vein of the university and the city trying to cooperate with our memorandum of understanding, I would think that would be great if we could have either some representation or open communication with the sustainability office at Ohio University.
And we've communicated with them. And, that's why doing it in August or doing it at the end of July, filling the commission, it would be nice to get enthusiastic students on it because, it's always good to get enthusiastic research being done. So that's why in September I see it as being more filled.
Good.
So.
Any other comments regarding ordinance 6012? All those in favor of ordinance 6012 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Ordinance 6012 is adopted. Moving on to ordinances for second reading. And again, ordinances for second reading are just usually that, for reading. Ordinance 6312, an ordinance providing for the issuance of $500,000 of notes by the City of Athens, Ohio, in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying part of the costs of acquiring and constructing improvements to East State Street and declaring an emergency. Ordinance 6512, an ordinance closing a portion of Court, Union, Washington, and State Streets on Saturday, July 21st to 1 a.m. on Sunday, July 22nd, 2012 for Boogie on the Bricks, a family music festival. Ordinance 6612, an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code, Title 7, Section 7.05.26B1, City Garage Metered Parking Rates and Regulations on Saturday, July 21st to 1 a.m. Sunday, July 22nd, 2012 for Boogie on the Bricks, a family music festival. Ordinance 6712, an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code Chapter 11.04, vending, peddling, and soliciting to allow vending in a designated area on July 21st and 22nd, 2012 during the Boogie on the Bricks Family Music Festival. Ordinance 6812, an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code, Section 13.04.10, unnecessary noise in the downtown area on July 21st, 2012 for Boogie on the Bricks, a family music festival. Ordinance 6912, an ordinance establishing a glass-free drinking container zone during Boogie on the Bricks Family Music Festival on Saturday, July 21st to 1 a.m. Sunday, July 22nd, 2012. Ordinance 7012, an ordinance granting renewal of a revocable license to Michael Holbrook, owner, Mufflerman, 219 Columbus Road, to allow the replacement of the face panel on an existing sign on the city right-of-way. Ordinance 7112, An ordinance granting renewal of a revocable license to Demetrius Prokos, owner 80 East State Street, for the use of the city's right-of-way. Ordinance 7212, an ordinance authorizing improvements to city parks. Now we're on for ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 7412, an ordinance declaring mowers in the Engineering and Public Works Department no longer needed for a municipal purpose, and amending the 2012 appropriation ordinance for the purchase of replacement mowers, introduced by Councilmember Nisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. As explained in our Finance Committee meeting earlier this evening, we do have two zero-turn mowers that are used by the street departments extensively for all of our, or much of our summer mowing in the city. And these have problems with the belts in the brake system and have broken a number of times and are making it unsafe for our street crew to be using them. So this appropriation would allow us to trade in the existing mowers and then appropriate money for the purchase of the replacement mowers. And Councilmember Patterson has some additional information about the actual quote on those.
Thank you. Again, the trade-in that we'll be getting for the existing mowers, we're getting $2,500 in trade allowance for the two Kubotas that are $11,900 apiece. So this will give us some savings. And again, to follow up with what Member Nisley was saying, apparently we have just one mower in operation now that's safe enough for hills. Therefore, to make this purchase is highly appropriate.
Member Nisley, do we need to suspend this or wait a while?
I wasn't informed. Do you think there's a need?
Oh, I'm not sure if you were at the meeting this morning. I think they would like it suspended, if that's okay.
Miss?
It doesn't have
It's-
an emergency clause on it.
Well, the appropriation part, I guess, is what, they can go ahead and buy, I mean, I don't know.
I can request that we consider this ordinance under suspension of the rules, please.
Okay.
Whatever
All
the
the
staff
reason
meeting.
to suspend.
Yeah.
So when we discussed this in committee meeting, these mowers are 2010 mowers. They were bought 2 years ago.
But no longer under warranty.
So mowers last 2 years?
My experience, I've done landscaping many years ago, and we used a lawn, we used a lawn boy, which lasted about a year and a half. Whereas most of the time you could get about 5 years out of that. But realize what you're talking about is something that runs 5 days a week,
Yeah.
8 hours a day. So, those wear out. And again, really what they're seeing is a maintenance issue. And again, the conversation I didn't get to the staff meeting early enough, but I know the conversation that precipitated Thursday was that it's a problem because, a safety problem, because once the belt goes,
Right, I understand.
it has no control over brakes or, where it goes. I'd rather get them done and fixed faster than slower. So I'd recommend suspending it at this point.
Member Nisley has moved for suspension.
I have a question.
Oh, another question, okay.
Who's the vendor?
Great. They're Gravely mowers.
They're Gravely Pro Masters. You have it on your ordinance there. The Kubota, I think, is all power, but I'm not sure.
So we're getting a different brand.
Yes. They're not going to be belt driven. I think they're gear driven. I think that was the conversation I had with Andy.
It just seems like two mowers, 2 seasons of mowing, and they're shot.
They would work better on flat areas. I think that's what they realized, that there's limitations, and it really didn't come to noticeable problem until 11 belt breaks, and then when you realize the implication of what happens when the belt breaks.
Yeah.
I haven't worked with that many belt pieces of equipment, but I know that sometimes they just don't work after a while. Could be faulty belts too, but I doubt that. Again, I think they've realized that it's not exactly designed for what they're trying to do, which is hillside grass cutting. We have a few hills here.
Member Nisley has moved for suspension.
Second.
You have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of suspending the rules on ordinance 7412 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. Rules have been suspended.
Mr. President, I move adoption of ordinance 7412.
Second?
And as explained, we are recommending suspension tonight because the street crew has an immediate need for the replacement of these mowers that aren't functioning.
Okay. All those in favor of ordinance 7412 and the suspension of rules signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Ordinance 7412 is passed under suspension of the rules. Ordinance 7512, an ordinance amending the 2012 appropriation ordinance, introduced by Councilmember Nisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this is to appropriate money from the unappropriated balance, $500 to the general fund parking enforcement. And that's account 101, and the transaction code is 600. And these are for refunds for the parking enforcement.
Okay. Any comments? Okay. Ordinance 7612, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application and enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the purpose of improvements to Richland Avenue South through the Transportation Enhancement Program and declaring an emergency. Introduced by Councilmember Gosnell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move that we consider ordinance 7612 under suspension of council rules.
Second.
And the reason for the suspension is an impending grant application deadline that is set by the state of Ohio.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules on ordinance 7612. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The rules are suspended. Member Gosnell?
Thank you. I would like to move that we consider ordinance 7612 for adoption.
Second.
This ordinance is allowing the city to enter into a grant application with the state of Ohio for federal dollars for transportation enhancement. This would be a project for Richland Avenue from Dairy Lane south to Canterbury, and it would be essentially a complete street rehab for that section of Richland Avenue to improve transportation for vehicles, whether motorized or not, so bicycles as well as vehicles and pedestrians. This is a pretty large project that is under contemplation for 2014 if it's awarded and the city goes through with it. Including a contingency, it's estimated around $3.5 million for the project in total, with the city's match 20%. The rest of that, the 80% of the construction costs would be paid for by this grant if the city were successful in the application.
And what was the deadline that required this suspension? Mayor?
I do not know offhand, I was just looking it up.
Okay.
I know it's coming out
I
of...
don't have the exact date here, but it does require that we consider this.
The time frame was short.
July 1.
Yeah.
The time frame was pretty short. I think.
It's the end of June. They want it in by the end of this fiscal year. So if we wait if you wait till the next meeting, then they don't really have time to get it in there. And their feeling is they hadn't intended to apply for this, and they were told about it and encouraged to apply, and they feel that the sooner they get it in, the better.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead. All those in favor of, I'm sorry, comments over there.
My comment is acknowledging the desperate need for enhancements in Richland Avenues and sorry disrepair. So I definitely see the big need here. Additionally, with the bike pedestrian master plan, this is a corridor that's been slated as benefit as well.
I would like to echo what Member Butler was saying, and to add, actually, I would like, if you would, Member Gosnell, to explain a little bit about what a complete street actually is, or define it, because I think that's really important, especially with this ordinance, so that everyone understands what a complete street is.
And I'm not sure I'm the best to define a complete street, but from my understanding, it takes into account, all the different type modes of transportation and make sure that they're accommodated in as safe a way as possible.
Which includes bikes, pedestrians, and cars. Try to keep it safe so everybody has a fair chance on the road. I think that was actually part of the safety rather than enhancement grant, but they both apply. What you're seeing, the standards right now is you want to be able to put all the different modes on and have them work together, where one doesn't have to conflict with the other one. And to that extent, that's why you're seeing the abutments on the bridges now that we're putting on there, so there's a gap, a barrier between the sidewalk and the street. You see that in all our designs that are coming through. In this case, in the sidewalk, you don't do that, but at the same time, you want, and it's going to be difficult because that is a fast food lane corridor where you have almost every business has two exits or an entrance and an exit of some kind. So it'll be a challenge to do the design right. But that's, it needs to be done, as you know. You travel it, and most of the people do.
I would just also add that it'll be a complete, because Oxbow is being done next summer. We've already done the roundabout and the bridge, so that would be that whole corridor of street heading to the south side from this side of town, from the north side or the uptown area. So that...
Almost. We still have Canterbury to the south.
To the highway,
side.
I understand, but, yeah, but I mean, it's...
We do as much as we can.
Yeah,
Look at the cost involved.
yeah.
Member Patterson?
I would just like to add one last thing, and I think that for a complete street, in terms of design, I think that a lot of cities' best practices for commuter-friendly cities are complete streets, and I think the other thing that's going to do for the whole Richland Avenue corridor is it's going to enhance things from an economic standpoint for commerce. I think that it'll be a huge boost to that whole corridor of the city.
Okay. Mayor, did you have something?
No?
Okay. We have suspended the rules on ordinance 7612, so now all those members in favor of acceptance of ordinance 7612 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Ordinance 7612 is adopted. Ordinance 7712, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a professional services contract with the Athens Hocking Solid Waste District and Recycling Center and declaring an emergency. Introduced by all members of council.
No.
Which member is going to speak?
I will speak.
I guess that one.
Thank you. As stated, this authorizes the Service Safety Director to enter into the contract, and what this is a two-year contract renewal beginning July 1, 2012 through June 30, 2014, and this is for our agreement between the city and the Athens Hocking Recycling Center. As Roger Bales detailed for us in the committee meeting tonight, there are some changes on pages 2 and 3 that state the rates that we will be paying, the $71,250 plus 80% of the extra bags and special hauls per calendar month. And as we clarified, Council Member Pappy had a question whether or not this would include necessarily new fees onto citizens. It would not. That's under a separate agreement. This agreement also gives us the option to have 60 days in which, if either party want to withdraw from this. And so it does give us that option that if we have modifications based on the long-term study that's being completed in the next 12 months, that we can do so.
Any other questions? Yeah, Mayor.
As discussed, the option to terminate has been in all the contracts we've had in the past. There's nothing really new in that sense. I would recommend we could suspend this on the second reading, just so we have it in train for the end of our present contract. Other than that, as I say, there is a concern, of course, that we be locked in. That's why I brought that up, because the solid waste district members were concerned about that. But as I said, there will be a policy committee meeting tomorrow in Nelsonville Library, and to keep it moving forward, the plan.
Can you guess the yellow highlighted portion here says monthly fee of 71,000 and change. What's the city's fee now? You know?
I think that's the
The
same.
base rate remains the same, and then we add the additional dollar that was passed in 2010 for the recycling fees, and then additional monies for the centralized collection uptown, so.
Thank you. Okay, this will be up for second reading in 2 weeks. Okay, we're down to announcements and other business. Announcements, I'm sorry.
The announcement is that, as you're painfully aware, the water is out on Berkeley and a portion of Andover. Once it's restored, there will be a boil order in place, so. Because the water main broke during the fire work.
A house fire.
Correct.
Very traumatic situation.
Yes.
Committee meetings?
Mayor, did you have something to say?
No, I was just saying committee meetings. I assume finance or personnel probably, but other than that, couldn't tell you.
We're assuming that. Finance and personnel might
Put
would
that
probably.
down, just in case.
Okay. Other committees?
City services.
City services?
Thank you.
Sure.
And
Transportation?
Development, planning and development, please.
So that takes care of all of this.
President, did you want the committee of the whole for Police Chief Pyle to attend for the next committee?
Did we? I'm sorry, we didn't talk about it.
Okay.
But
Does he want to come?
He is ready, willing, we're waiting. We needed to get through graduation and what have you to start the discussion regarding, the multi-house street party events. So, but it can occur at any time. And we wanted to engage Student Senate, the other things that we had discussed previously.
So,
Well, it could easily fall under safety, correct?
Correct.
And we could
Sure.
request all council to be present.
so would you like to do that for
To
next
contact-
week?
I think we're on for safety.
Yeah, so, so I
Invite the chief?
I think that.
And I can follow up with you and the chief.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other business? Or,
I have a question.
yes,
I have a question for the city safety director.
Yes, sir.
I recall a pump at the sewage treatment plant died and had to be replaced. What's the status of that?
The money was appropriated. That occurred. I do not know that it's been installed yet. They were working on actually attempting to do some repair modification.
On the old one, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they're still trying to make it work.
Correct.
Good for them.
Yes.
You got to appreciate the frugal.
okay.
Good to know.
Any other council members? Okay. Now we have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services not covered on the agenda. Mr. Weiser? Yes. Mr. Weiser, I'm sorry, I need to introduce this whole section. There's a sign-in sheet, please sign in. We need a name and address, please. You have 3 minutes to speak. The light will be green, and when it begins flashing at you, you've got 30 seconds. It means time is running out, so, okay. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I even brought it late tonight.
Time doesn't begin until you do all that signing in stuff.
My name is Michael Weiser. I'm from 60 Fairview Avenue. In my research into the history of the cliff above 4th Street, I discovered the original 1923 and revised 1931 plat maps for the Alderman Heights addition to the city of Athens. The Alderman Heights addition encompasses the entire Fairview Avenue area above the cliff and the 4th Street area below. Both maps show the intention of the city to have the road come out to the edge of the cliff and then have it connect back to Fairview Avenue, seen in yellow. This would have created a 4-lot island in the center. The street that was to travel along the cliff now dead ends in front of 24 and 36 Fairview Avenues at the orange line. Those houses, 24 and 36 Fairview Avenue, address the north-south running dead-end street and face west and east, respectively. The next two houses down the hill face south and north, respectively, and are oriented in anticipation of the east-west running street that was never completed. The houses on Fairview Avenue were platted and oriented for this wraparound street plan, and they were built with this plan in mind. They stand today addressing the proposed street that was never planned, that was never finished. Somewhere along the way, the city retreated from the approved plan and abandoned the wraparound street. Again, this road would have traveled along the edge of the Athens Brick Company mining site and connected back to Fairview Avenue. The city obviously made a decision against the approved plan well after the entire project was underway, when the houses had been or were in the process of being built. It would appear that the proposed plan had been in place for nearly a decade. The city altered it in midstream. If nothing else, it seems that it was too late to reorient to the north and south-facing houses. At the point of the dead end, the ground begins to fall away sharply. If there had been ample ground for the proposed plan at the time of the original plat map, what made the city deviate and abandon this plan? The cliff still has a jagged and uneven face, and it seems clear that the city did not act to secure the public safety at the outset of this project. Even when the city-approved plans were ruined, the city simply cut its losses and made the street a dead end. Once again, I remind you of the history of the cliffside. The Athens Brick Company went bankrupt in 1917, and the cliff was left to sit idle for roughly 22 years until the first houses appeared. In the intervening years, the city leaders rezoned the commercial Athens Brick Company site as residential and granted building permits to the Alderman Heights addition. After 1932, they established Fort Street, and in 1937, a boulder fell that still sits at 18 Fort Street. All along this continuum, the city never acted to stabilize the cliff or compel the property owner, Mr. William N. Alderman, former co-owner and president of the Athens Brick Company, to stabilize the property before allowing the Alderman Heights project to be undertaken.
Thank you. At some point, Mr. Weiser, you might want to show that to the camera, because it didn't show up very well.
If you'd like me to do it now, I will.
Okay. When we're done, we'll
No problem.
work it out with
I have other maps.
with our operators. Okay. Anybody else wish to speak?
Is this just general discussion? I'm sorry, it's not ordinances?
That's fine. Anything that's,
Legislative items not covered on the agenda.
Well, I'm not legislative. I guess I am, just because I want to speak to you.
please do sign in.
I will. Okay, thank you. My name is Randy Mace. I live at Radford, 5885 Radford Road in Athens, out of the city, obviously. Known to a few of you. I ran EMA for the county for a number of years, and I was hired as one of the original 911 person to put 911 together. I retired about 7 years ago. I've been asked to run for commissioner 2 or 3 times, and was replied that I was very happy being retired. But they asked me this time, and I said, well, with the federal government and the state government's doing what they're doing with the budget, so I'll give it a shot. So I'm just here as a courtesy call to meet y'all, tell you that I'm doing that. I do have an R after my name. They want to know why I run as Republican. I said that's because they're the ones that asked me. So I don't need to take up your time. I just, like I said, just a courtesy call, and thank you for the time.
Thank you for coming to our council meeting. Anybody else have anything to say?
Oh, for me? No.
No. Okay, we will declare our meeting closed at 8:00 something or other. 8:08. Thank you.